Welcome back to KEEPUP News Channel. Church of England abuse survivors demand more resignations as Archbishop of Canterbury quits in shame over his failure to stop its worst-ever child attacker, who had as many as 130 young victims. Victims of the Church of England's worst-ever child abuser demanded more heads roll tonight after the shock resignation of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Justin Welby quit as the head of the Anglican Church today, admitting shame over his failure to act to stop the sickening excesses of John Smith. Smith, a top barrister and lay church reader, sexually, physically and psychologically abused as many as 130 boys in a campaign of brutality in the UK and South Africa spanning 5 decades before his death in 2018. The Archbishop had tried to hang on to his throne after a damning report found his failure to act more than a decade ago meant that abhorrent serial abuser was never brought to justice. But he quit this afternoon after senior colleagues joined criticism and more than 12,000 people signed a petition calling for him to resign, and PM Keir Starmer pointedly refused to back him. After he announced his decision to quit, there were calls for others criticized in the Macon report, which branded Smith arguably the most prolific serial abuser to be associated with the Church of England, to quit or be forced out. The House of Survivors, which was set up by 2 survivors of Church of England abuse to help others, said, "We expect more resignations to follow. The Archbishop must not be the scapegoat." The list of clergy in the circles of awareness is staggering. Those facing calls to go include the current Bishop of Lincoln, Stephen Conway, who has apologized for not taking further action in 2013, when he was the Bishop of Ely. Over 5 decades between the 1970s until his death, Smith is said to have subjected as many as 130 boys and young men in the UK and Africa to traumatic physical, sexual, psychological and spiritual attacks, permanently marking their lives. A lay reader who led Christian summer camps, Smith died aged 75 in Cape Town in 2018 while under investigation by Hampshire police, and was never brought to justice for the abuse, the review said. Mr. Welby knew Smith because of his attendance at Awern Christian camps in the 1970s, but the review said there was no evidence that he had maintained any significant contact with the barrister in later years. The Archbishop said he had no idea or suspicion of this abuse before 2013. The report said Smith could and should have been formally reported to the police in the UK, and to authorities in South Africa, church authorities and potentially the police, by church officers, including a diocesan bishop and Justin Welby in 2013. The Archbishop of York said the resignation was the right and honourable thing to do, while MPs insisted there was a duty on leaders of institutions to report and rigorously follow up safeguarding concerns. In a statement this afternoon, Dr. Welby said, "Having sought the gracious permission of His Majesty the King, I have decided to resign as Archbishop of Canterbury." The Macon Review has exposed the long-maintained conspiracy of silence about the heinous abuses of John Smith. "When I was informed in 2013 and told that police had been notified, I believed wrongly that an appropriate resolution would follow. It is very clear that I must take personal and institutional responsibility for the long and re-traumatizing period between 2013 and 2024. Dr. Welby added, "The last few days have renewed my long-felt and profound sense of shame at the historic safeguarding failures of the Church of England." Sir Keir declined to give Dr. Welby full support on Monday after a senior bishop called for him to resign, instead saying that it is a matter really for the Church. However, he went a step further today when he was asked about growing calls for the Archbishop to step down while attending COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. Sir Keir said that findings in the review by Keith Macon that Smith abused more than 100 boys and young men are clearly horrific and that his victims have obviously been failed very, very badly. The PM said, "Let me be clear. Of what I know of the allegations, they are clearly horrific in relation to this particular case and both in their scale and their content, and my thoughts, as they are with all of these issues, are with the victims here who have obviously been failed very, very badly. It is a matter in the end for the Church, but I am not going to shy away from the fact saying these are horrific allegations, and my thoughts are with the victims in relation to it, and I think that is very important." Pressure had been heaped on Dr. Welby after a senior bishop broke ranks yesterday, calling for him to resign immediately. The Right Reverend Helen N. Hartley, the Bishop of Newcastle, said that his position was untenable. I think that it's very hard for the Church, as the national, established Church, to continue to have a moral voice in any way, shape or form in our nation, when we cannot get our own house in order, she told the BBC. She added that while Dr. Welby's resignation is not going to solve the problem, it would be a very clear indication that a line has been drawn, and that we must move towards independence of safeguarding. Meanwhile, a petition, started by 3 members of the Church's ruling body, the General Synod, and backed by a number of high-profile priests, calling for the Archbishop to resign, passed 12,000 signatures this morning. The petition read, "Given his role in allowing abuse to continue, we believe that his continuing as the Archbishop of Canterbury is no longer tenable. We must see change, for the sake of survivors, for the protection of the vulnerable, and for the good of the Church." Dr. Welby is believed to have notified the King of his intentions this morning, before the PM's remarks. Dr. Welby's resignation is unprecedented and marks first time that an Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned in such controversial circumstances. The law requires that the Archbishop of Canterbury to retire by the age of 70, meaning that at 68 Dr. Welby would have had almost 2 more years until a successor was appointed. The retirement is usually announced well in advance, as it is often a drawn-out process to appoint a successor. It is more common for archbishops to die in office than to resign, with Thomas Becket being assassinated and Thomas Cranmer executed. And while Rowan Williams, Lord Williams of Oystermouth, did resign in 2012 at the age of 62, this was done to take up a prestigious position as Master of Magdalene College, Cambridge. An archbishop also needs the monarch's blessing to step down, which is not guaranteed. When former Archbishop Lord George Carey tried to step down, the late Queen reminded him that she can't resign either. Stephen Cottrell, the Archbishop of York, said Dr. Welby's resignation was the right and honourable thing to do. In a statement, he said, "As I read the Macon Review last week and reflected on the terrible abuse perpetrated by John Smith and shamefully covered up by others, I am, first of all, moved by the accounts of victims and survivors that we have heard from so powerfully. They were badly let down by many in different parts of the Church of England. I am grateful for their courage to be part of the review. As a church, we continue to work towards and must achieve a more victim-centered and trauma-informed approach to safeguarding within the Church of England, and this must address the broader questions of culture and leadership. In this regard, much progress has already been made over the last 10 years. Indeed, it has been Archbishop Justin himself who has championed those developments and reforms. Both Justin and I have made our hopes known about the independence of safeguarding discussed both by Macon and also in Alexis J's report, and look forward to the group already at work on these, bringing recommendations which can be both effective and trusted. As Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin has decided to take his share of responsibility for the failures identified by the Macon Review. I believe this is the right and honourable thing to do. Whilst this is a difficult day for Justin, I pray there will be an opportunity to reflect on and appreciate the many positive aspects of his ministry and his huge commitment to the Church of England, the Anglican Communion, and above all the Gospel of Jesus Christ. But I continue to take account of the needs and experiences of victims and survivors and look to the various changes, above all the greater independence of safeguarding, that we need to help ensure these failings never happen again. It is to this ongoing work that I commit myself." The report said a victim informed Bishop Conway's then diocese in Ely of the allegations against Smith in 2013. The man, who was not named, told the BBC of Bishop Conway, "He was the person in a position to stop John Smith, bring him to justice, and he fundamentally failed." Responding to the Macon Review, Bishop Conway said, "In light of the review, I understand that there were further actions I could have taken following my reporting of the disclosures made to us in the Diocese of Ely about John Smith. I am sorry that I did not pursue these actions at that time." The Bishop of Stepney Joanne Grenfell said, "As lead bishop for safeguarding for the Church of England, I have been acutely aware of the impact of the Macon report and the re-traumatizing effects of its publication on victims and survivors of John Smith's awful abuse. With sadness, I fully respect and understand Archbishop Justin's decision today to resign. Although Archbishop Justin has helped the Church of England to achieve much in relation to safeguarding during his tenure, because of the failings identified in the Macon report, it is now necessary for others to take up the baton. Of course, the responsibility for good safeguarding in the Church of England lies with every one of us. Archbishop Justin's resignation does not change that, and his decision today does not absolve any of us from bringing about the wholesale changes in culture and leadership that are essential in every part of the Church. I am acutely aware of the need in our current work on safeguarding independence, following the report of Professor Alexis J., to bring to General Synod recommendations for moving forward which can be both effective and trusted in this regard. I have worked closely with Archbishop Justin since I took on this role and have greatly valued his personal commitment to good safeguarding and his desire to see the whole Church make this a priority. Alan Collins, a partner at law firm Hugh James, which represents a number of Smith's victims, said, "It is unsurprising that Welby has resigned because of the immense pressure on him to do so, given his involvement in the Smith case." However, the real story is not about whether Welby has resigned, this is a side matter. The spotlight must be on how the Church of England failed its victims so dreadfully for over 40 years, and the immediate priority is the COE addressing the needs of its victims. All the intention is on Welby's resignation, but this should not detract from the Church of England sorting out its unfathomable safeguarding issues. Hugh James has already brought a claim against the Church of England on behalf of its victims that they represents, and now the Church of England must address the needs of its victims. Source: dailymail.co.uk. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.